my friend, are a growth mindset?
Probably attribute it to my parents, which is you could probably attribute most things in life.
Well, you're doing my job for me. This is for me exactly where I wanted this to go. Hello, my friends. I'm Bobby Macey, and welcome to the Be Somebody podcast. This is a podcast that I have wanted to launch for many, many years, and here's why. There was a gentleman by the name of Jerry Hunt, and he dated my mom years and years ago. He was one of the most positive people you'd ever met, and his call to action in life was this: be somebody. And I loved that. It stuck with me all of these years. And now I think about that from like a self-improvement, self-motivation. Who am I choosing to be every single day? So I'm bringing on guests to help tell their story, people who I have handpicked that I truly fundamentally believe are choosing to be somebody every day. So today we've got a fun guest, Erik Soderborg. He is a dear friend of mine. We went to school together, high school, hike school, Billy, and he is a master at many things. Incredible athlete. We played tennis together, basketball together, and still compete against each other in an event he runs called Man Games. Erik, you handsome man.
Stop it.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. This is fantastic. Fun is not usually the adjective used to describe me, but I will do my best to be as fun as possible.
Well, the expression that I've heard best to describe you, it's actually a series, Thirst Trap.
Oh, God.
Similar to our dear friend Derek, really, really ridiculously good looking.
Wow. And Caitlin's got to watch this because she needs that enforcement.
Dude, she already landed the goods, baby.
There you go. She's locked it down.
Oh, well, not everybody can have your delicate, perfectly positioned scruff and 6'3" or 6'4"?
6'4" if I stand up straight.
Yes, and you do have good posture. I've witnessed it firsthand.
Thank you.
Second serve in tennis is as fast as the first, I can confirm. And
both slow.
We are here. So I've got a few questions for you, my friend.
We'll do my best.
You are somebody who inspires me because you're very intentional about the way you live. So tell me this. And I'm cheating here, by the way. I've got some questions that ChatGPT helped me to come up with based on a very, very good prompt. So what are some daily habits that you believe contribute to your own personal growth?
It's interesting that you bring it up now because there's been a life shift that I'm sure we'll get into a little bit.
Oh, yes, we will.
The daily habits have changed over the last month from when I was employed at a company versus self-employed. But for me, I am trying to get something done in the day. And what has been something that's evolved over my life is, what does that actually mean to get something done? And I think the trap that I fell into personally was, okay, if I made a checklist and I didn't do all 10 of the items on the checklist, I failed in that day. If I only did 8 out of 10, then I felt like, okay, I didn't accomplish it. Or if there was a day where I did all 10, that meant that the next day I had to do all 10 too, or else the next day wasn't as good as the first. So falling into that trap was something that I think that I've grown out of, not just because of the recent transition, but just in general. But the daily things that my wife makes fun of me because I can't function without a shower. And as silly as that sounds, like bathing yourself is important. But for me, if there's like an early morning basketball that I'm going to go play in or anything, I have to shower first because that wakes me up. And I think you do like cold plunges and cold showers. I think you're a similar way. Mine isn't cold, but that's what gets me up. I am always reading something. So there's some sort of new information that I'm trying to take into my brain to help out with that. And then if I can get out and walk 10,000 steps in a day, then that's great. And then there are other family aspects that kind of get into that of spending the right amount of time with the right people. But I think that those are the big things, is making sure I'm starting the day, waking up and being ready to go, feeding my brain in some way and feeding my body. And then the rest kind of follows along with that.
Okay, there's a lot that I love about what you just said. One of the things is you recognize you wake up, you're groggy, you need something. Right? For some people, that's coffee. For other people, that's food. For some people, that's cold exposure. For you, you're like, no, I just need a shower. I need to get wet. It's going to wake me up. Then I can go perform, whether it's exercise, whether it's work, whatever it is. But then you mentioned that you have an intake method with knowledge. You're always wanting to be learning something. There's always something there to be learned. To me, what you're describing here is a growth mindset. And that's a common term in the educational world. There's a book all about that. I think it is called Mindset. It might even be called Growth Mindset.
Yeah, I don't know.
However,
I'll have to read it.
I'll find the author. It might be Carol Dweck. What you're describing here is a growth mindset. And I've seen that in you. So for those who aren't familiar with this, a growth mindset is you believe you can learn something. You believe you can try new things and intake that. A fixed mindset would be something like, I'm not good at math, and that's just the way it is. You, my friend, are a growth minded individual. How did you develop that?
Probably attribute it to my parents, which is, you could probably attribute most things in life to that, for better or worse. And my two parents are drastically different people. My mom was very much of the mindset of you can do anything. I mean, if you think you can be an NBA basketball player, you're going to be, and I'm going to do everything I can to build you up positively in that regard. My dad was never the opposite of that, but he was a realist. He was very much like, okay, if you want to play in the NBA, I remember him doing this exercise. He's like, how many people in Utah who were born in Utah made it to the NBA? And when he asked me this, the number was like 20. Like 20 people in the history of the NBA were born in Utah. One of them was Byron Scott, who was born in Utah and eventually moved. So he was technically born here, but wasn't raised here. So just the numbers around that, is very much this realist of like, okay, if you want to make a goal, you need to understand what it's going to take to get there. So I think that both of them helped with whatever I did. Sports was obviously a big part of my life, but my mom's mindset of you can do anything that you put your mind to. My dad's mindset of if you want to get better at something, you have to put in the time and the effort and the work, and you will get better at it. Those two combined kind of helped me feel like I can't do everything well, but you can go from 0 to 1 with just a little bit of time and effort.
I love that. And for the record, I know both of Erik's parents, and tremendous people. Mom recently passed away after a long battle with cancer. I love that woman. I know you love that woman. Your dad has had an incredible impact on your life. He was at all of our sporting events.
Yeah.
This is something that I respect about your dad that I don't know if I've ever told you this. So we're tennis partners. He's at everything. We're on the same basketball squad. He's at everything. But he was not the dude who was ever playing a political game.
Yeah.
He wasn't in coach's ear about my son's the best, even though realistically you were. But, and that tasted like vinegar coming out of my mouth. But I can admit that. And he was there. Like, to me, that shows consistency. That shows like he's watching, he's observing. And then behind the scenes, based on what you've described to me over the years, this dude, Mr. Dave himself, not Thomas, the hamburger man, but Soderborg, he's been kind of a life coach and a mentor to you as well.
Yeah, I think it's strange because everybody has their normal. And my normal is a heavily involved dad who, yes, he was hard on me in terms of like keeping me living up to my potential. But at the same time, we go to lunch every Wednesday. To this day, he is a best friend at this point. So to have a dad now as an adult who's your best friend, and I have lots of friends who are very close, but I think that that's rare, and at least in the circles that I run in. And so I feel very fortunate with that. And to have him, and again, my mom too, they ended up getting divorced. So it's not like it was all sunshine and rainbows, but to have those influences in my life, and you bring up like he was just there, he showed up. And I think as we get into this conversation, I think that's such a big part of being somebody in the world, is to show up. I mean, that's 90% of the battle.
You're doing my job for me. This is exactly where I wanted this to go.
Yeah, no, but to have a dad who, you say he wasn't playing the political game, he was a coach. He was my coach my whole life up until high school. And he was he's still the best coach I've ever had.
Yeah.
And I know I'm biased, but he hated when parents would come up and chirp in the ear and try to get their son playing time, because as a coach, you're there for every practice, you're there for every game, you're there for all of the conversations behind the scenes stuff. Parents aren't there for practice. They don't see if their son is being lazy or not working hard or whatever it is. And so for their son to go home and share their side of the story, what son's going to say like, yeah, I didn't do anything in practice, I was super lazy and I talked back. So from his mindset of a coach, it made it easier for him to deal with my coaches, where he wasn't going to be there. He's going to let them make their decisions.
Yeah.
And run with it.
Gosh, that's so powerful. I'm reading this book right now by a gentleman named Ryan Holiday, and it's called The Daily Dad. It's super awesome because every day you open it up and it just goes through the dates of the year, January 1 through December 31st, and there's an excerpt, one page, that's it. And he doesn't want you to read multiple at a time. He just says, hey, read one a day. Matthew McConaughey endorsed him, saying like, this needs to be a part of every father's like morning ritual.
Yeah.
And I recently read an excerpt. It was his views on parenting. And he's like, anybody can have a kid. I made a little like Instagram reel on this because I just loved the concept.
Yeah.
He's like, you procreate, that doesn't mean you're a parent.
Yeah.
That means you had a kid. The word parent, that means you are showing up. That means you're intentional. That means you're providing. That means you are choosing to take on that title of parent and separating yourself from all of the Joe Schmoes out there who have had a kid.
Yeah.
And that's what I see in you with your own family now. That's what I saw with your dad and both with your mom as well.
Mm-hmm.
And talk me through that. Like, you have to make choices every day as a business owner, as somebody who has great relationships with all these different people. But like, ultimately it comes down to, you have a family. You have a lovely wife, several kids. There's a dog in there.
2 dogs.
2 dogs. And walk me through this idea that Ryan Holiday describes of like being a parent versus having a kid.
Yeah, I think another version of that I've heard is like anybody can be a father, but there's only a few that can be a dad. And same thing for a mother and a mom. And again, my dad, he was self-employed. He owned real estate. He was a landlord. And so he was able to be there at any time. Now, the downside to that profession is that in the middle of the night, if the heater or the water heater or the furnace or something goes out, you got to kind of be on call for that and running with interesting people. But the fact that he was able to be there all the time was huge for me. And as I've come to the point in my life now, as of a month ago, so much of myself got caught into the same, like, I've got to get more responsibility. I've got to earn more money. I've got to grow and be better than my peers or whatever else it is from my corporate mindset. And the passing of my mom really helped hit home the idea of like, we're only here for a certain amount of time. We only have the same number of time or hours in a day as everybody else. So who do I want to spend that with? And so my family definitely is something that came into that. So the fact that I'm able to walk the kids to school, I'm able to pick them up when they are off of school, take Jared to the rec center, hang out with Noelle and Claire, like do all of these things with my kids. And then also with my wife. I mean, I would rather make less and have the ability to have the impact on my kid's life that my parents had on mine than to make more and be absent, because I was working a lot of hours, both in the office and then when I get home, to where Jared would come up and like, let's go throw the ball or let's go shoot. Like, okay, yeah, let me just finish this real quick. And then by the time I realized that it was bedtime and I hadn't been able to do that. And so for some people that weighs more heavily than others. For me, that weighed really heavily given my background and my experience. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be there. I want to be able to coach him. I want to be able to be more involved. So I think that that's really helped with the most recent transition here of taking more control of my time and the mindset of like, I don't have to perform or make more than Bobby or work more hours than Bobby or do anything related to anybody else other than my own little circle and what I want to be as I kind of progress, right? We only have our kids for so long.
Yeah.
We were only able to spend time with them. They're only going to be 11, 9, and 5 once. And so by the time they get to teenagers, they just want to hang out with friends. My 11-year-old's kind of already there. But then once they get to 18, they move out of the house. Like, then I can work myself to death. Like, that's the time where I can put in the hours when I'm not able to be around them.
I love this for so many reasons. Anybody who consumes my content or follows me on Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever is going to totally understand why I wanted you here. You're saying so many things that resonate with me. You know my story very well, and it's climb the corporate ladder to a certain point. What I describe as a calling, I'm Moana, entrepreneurship's the ocean, and yes, it called me. That felt good. Sorry, I had to do it.
It sounded good. I don't know if it picked up the same for everybody else, but.
Well, I'm not one who is musically inclined, so to speak, but I do have a growth mindset that I could get there one day.
I believe in it.
I'll keep practicing.
Yeah.
But you recently go through this journey of, hey, you were a CMO. Like, you were making decent money. You were able to provide for your family. You were doing some things on the side. And now you've taken things into your own hands, and that was not just a wonderfully natural and beautiful transition. Like, you had to obviously go through some adversity to make this happen. How do you do that? How do you stay focused on this idea of, I want something else and I'm going to get it?
Let's put it this way. I think it's easy in this situation for people to look at the company that they worked for and blame them. And I don't. So mine's the opposite of companies. And now that you're an entrepreneur and you've had to hire people, whether that's employees or 1099s or contractors, you have a vision of what you're trying to accomplish, and you try to bring on the best people that you can to help grow that vision, not just for yourself, but for them. And so the entity that I was with, unbelievable. The founders are unbelievable people. They had the dream, the vision. They gave me every opportunity possible. And then, like I said, with the death of my mom, it's almost like a switch flipped in me. And I understood that I was being kind of the illogical one in this, because I went to them and I was like, hey, here's kind of where my mindset is. We had built a channel, a YouTube channel, and offering a lot of help to people across the country. And I was doing that on top of the other roles of the chief marketing officer, with everything else, with websites and email campaigns and everything. And so it was one of those things where it was like, I'm willing to, for personal reasons, get rid of responsibilities, potentially get rid of income to have the things that I ultimately want to be as a person. And it was painful, I think, for both ends, right? Both entities, because they had invested a lot in me and they had done everything possible, and it was great. On the same end, I had invested everything I could to help them as well. And so anytime it's like a marriage in that sense of, it was described as we were talking and having conversations as a divorce, and there are a lot of emotions that are part of that. But I think for me, the ultimate thing was, what do I want to be as a person? How can I impact people in a positive way? And then how can I maintain my sanity and my relationship with the family that I have of my wife and my kids? Because I put that as like the top shelf. Like that is comes first. Everything else is after that. And there was a strain on those relationships because of the time I was putting into work. And that wasn't the company imposed. Like the company wasn't saying, Erik, you need to work 16-hour days. It was the opposite. They're like, take time, do what you need to do. But just me being the person that I was at that time, it's really hard for me to shut things off. If I have, again, 10 things to do, I got to get them done. And
it's a job to be done mentality.
Yeah, because I've committed to somebody to do this. And so I kind of like put my responsibility, or at least I want to make sure that I'm delivering for other people, kind of a people pleaser in a way. It can be negative in this context. So yes, it was hard. It was not their fault. It was my fault. And I think that the way that it was able to separate, though, we're both able to grow and be great because we're still friends. And from my perspective, I still refer all business to them. Yeah. So again, in my world, it's Medicare, which your audience is not going to be Medicare eligible. But
I have questions about this.
Yeah.
The sponsor of today's video is RodWorks. RodWorks, if you are not familiar, they will decorate your home fantastically, but also your business. So I know the owners of RodWorks, and I posted about Macey Media having a new office space, and ultimately one of the owners reached out and said, hey, we can help you furnish that. And I was like, didn't expect that. I thought that you were furnishing homes and this and that. Long story short, I went through a process with them, which was entirely seamless, and was able to get everything that you see here for this podcasting setup, which I think is spectacular. So thank you, RodWorks, for being a part of this. RodWorks.com for anybody who is interested from a home standpoint or from a corporate business standpoint. They've got the goods, baby. I admire that answer for a lot of reasons. I had the opportunity with Macey Media to film some videos for you when you were in that role. And it was awesome to meet your partners, to meet different people in that organization. And now it's awesome to also see you taking this chance on yourself, right? You have done something that is incredibly difficult. And I'm going to pat you on the back for this. You have built a YouTube audience, and you just left your job to become a YouTuber.
Which sounds silly.
And
Like when I say it out loud, it just sounds wrong.
is this how you introduce yourself? Like you meet somebody in the elevator and they're like, hey, so what do you do?
I tell them I'm in the Medicare space because I don't like talking about myself. So even just this is different. So it's like, I'm in the Medicare space. That usually shuts it down pretty quick.
Dude, this plays into you being a good marketer too. You are one of the most holistic marketers that I know. Somebody who can do DIY strategies, somebody who understands the breadth of marketing. And you're like, look, okay, I'll find a strategy and I'll poke that bear and I'll see what's working. And whatever spaghetti is sticking to the wall, we'll double down on it. So somebody like me I've been in the YouTube space for a while, I've had certain levels of success, helping grow some corporate channels to a decent amount of subscribers. Right now, Macey Media is the main videography team for a channel that has 12 million subscribers.
That's awesome.
Like I've read a ton of YouTube books, as you have. And
right there.
Yeah, the YouTube Formula by Daryl Eads. You're the one who actually recommended this to me, and you actually gave me that physical copy. So thank you.
You're right.
So there's all these things with YouTube where I do not consider myself an amateur in this space. And yet I have watched you grow an audience on YouTube in the Medicare space.
Yeah.
An audience of seniors. And how many subs do you have right now?
We are coming up on 100,000. So we'll be at 100,000 here in the next probably 2 weeks.
100,000 people are watching Medicare content on YouTube.
A lot more than 100,000 are watching, but 100,000 are willing to subscribe.
100,000 people intentionally click the subscribe button.
Yeah.
Tell me about your views. Some of your videos that I was just looking at have more than 250,000 views.
Yeah, our biggest right now is coming up on 1 million. We've got several that are over 500,000. Views are great. There's a lot of things where from a YouTube perspective, there are people searching for answers. And so that's how I've built the YouTube channel is what are the questions people have? How can we get them those answers in as transparent a form as possible? Because whether it's Medicare, finance, videography, whatever it may be, there are a lot of opportunities for people to take advantage of others and not share everything. And so our whole philosophy from the beginning, including the group that I was with, was let's be transparent, let's show what's going on. And then if you know what's going on, you can make a better decision. Whether you use me or somebody else, you will be in a better position to make a good decision for you and the rest of your life, knowing all of the details. And what has kind of happened is that the more people learn about how complicated it is, the more they just like, you do it for me. Think like taxes, right? Like if you wanted to learn all of the tax codes, you'll spend a lot of time doing that.
Absolutely.
But to put it all together in a cohesive way that actually gets you where you want to be in a safe ending point where you're not going to get in trouble in an audit, I don't want to do that myself. I'll let somebody else do that. So that's been the fun part of that is seeing that channel grow. And then it grows upon itself. So once you get 1,000 subscribers, once you release a video, you've got a good chunk that are going to watch that immediately. So instead of working so hard to get 1,000 views, your first 250 are coming from those subscribers that day. And then as you get up into the higher numbers, like as soon as you release a video, you get a bigger amount. So that grows on itself and then can share it with your friends and family. So YouTube's been an amazing place to be. I absolutely love it. And we got some exciting things planned for it. So it'll be a good thing.
This just warms my soul that this is working for you. And it's no surprise to me. When we did work together, you didn't have that channel.
Right.
And so now it's incredible. The channel, by the way, is Retirement Nerds. The Retirement Nerds.
The Retirement Nerds, yeah.
TheRetirementNerds.com. Also find them on YouTube. Tell your, parents, grandparents, anybody who is in that Medicare age about it.
65 years old.
But this is what's so fascinating to me from a be somebody standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, is we have an athlete, a father, a marketer in his mid-30s who has seen an opportunity to go after an audience that is not you. Sure, it may be your parents, but it's not you. And you are reaching these people and communicating with these people in an extraordinary way that's adding so much value. And now this is paying your mortgage. This is paying for your kids' baseball. This is all of the above, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think that it's probably a lesson for everybody I hear it all the time of I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm not tall enough, I'm not attractive enough, all of these things to whether it's starting a YouTube channel or getting into a profession. And at this point, we average about 800,000 to 1 million views a month. And with that, you get a lot of really positive comments. In fact, 99%, I think it's like 99.8% of our likes versus dislikes. But that 0.1% is loud. They are loud. And not that they are loud, but internally you take that. And so I hear all the time of what is this 35-year-old going to tell me that I don't already know type of stuff. And luckily, anybody who's wanting to get in front of a camera or put themselves out there, you need to understand that 99 out of 100 people will like you. You've got to be able to deal with the one that doesn't and not take their opinion into weighing your self-worth or anything around that. And I think it goes not just to that, but your friend group or your family or anything else. Just because one person in your life doesn't like you or your personality or isn't on the same frequency as you doesn't make you a bad person. But that's what's been fun with YouTube, is being able to connect with people all over the country. Before we started this, I talked to you about the audience, like knowing who the audience is when you start to make a video. And I have them in my mind. When I'm looking into a camera, I was like, okay, I am talking to Master Lee 43 right now. Here's the information that I hope he benefits from. And that's how we have found success. Now, other channels are on different topics. Ours is educational content. Others are for entertainment or humor or kind of extravagant things. That's not us. So they'll have their own audiences and they'll have their own triggers to help people get more out of their videos. But that's what we've found to be successful.
I love that. So I'm going to ask you for some advice here.
Okay.
Somebody who's watching this might feel stuck in their career. 15 seconds of advice for that person.
What do you want to do with your life? What does it take to get there? And then go through in your mind, what is the best case scenario? What is the worst case scenario? Reality is probably somewhere in the middle.
I love that. Somebody is not where they want to be with their mental health.
What has helped me, now I'm not a counselor or a therapist, what has helped me is surrounding myself with people like yourself and Chad Spencer and friends who, when you're not feeling great, they see you for what you can be and what you are, and they're secure with themselves to share as a man to another man what they admire about them. And that's been very helpful. The spouse and the family has been very helpful because they're my biggest cheerleaders and they're why I exist. And so relying on the opinions that matter rather than that 1% that don't is helpful.
I love that. And thank you, by the way. So now there are a lot of people, part of being well mentally, emotionally, all the categories, and being somebody, in my opinion, is also taking care of yourself physically so that you can take action in life. You are a mega athlete.
I don't know.
And you literally run an event called Man Games, which I have competed in many times and I've never won, and Girl Games, which some people are going to bash us. Why isn't it Women Games? It's a marketing thing. It sounds better as Girl Games.
It does.
But it's women who compete. Mm-hmm. And they are lovely women, very talented. So somebody's stuck physically. You know, they like sports, they like exercise, but they're stuck. How do they get out of a rut?
This is going to go back to the other question too. I think comparison is the thief of joy. So comparison is such a difficult part here. So just to give everyone context, my wife is a fitness freak. She is unbelievable. She doesn't have a stop button. She can just go and never stop. So running a marathon for her is fun.
That was a beautiful squeak.
So running a marathon for her is fun. That is not my idea of exercise. But even she, as I'm coming up to a Man Games event, I'll go to her and say like, hey, you know that I hate exercising for exercise's sake, but I have a month, help me get in shape. And so she'll throw me into some exercise routines. And she always says like the best exercise is the one that you do. And so I can map out everything. I can say, okay, I'm going to do this many push-ups, this many sit-ups, whatever. But if I do 15 push-ups versus 0, 15 is better than 0. So it doesn't matter if I did the 100. Now we set goals and it's trying to push yourself to that. So for me, I've always been a dog. I have to chase a ball. I have to chase a Frisbee to just go exercise.
Perfect analogy, by the way.
It's never been my thing. So whether that's basketball, tennis, ultimate Frisbee, pickleball, all of these sports have always been my outlet for exercise. And now as I get older, you exercise, and if you do like the deep lunge in pickleball, you're like, oh, like my muscles don't work the same way I should. So there's other exercises outside of now just playing sports to help you play sports better.
Yeah.
For me, exercise, if you're in a rut with exercise, I was as well. Caitlin told me to walk 10,000 steps in a day. And so in the middle of the day, I would go walk. We have a park that's about a mile away and it's got a loop. So I'd walk there, walk the loop, walk back, and that was my 10,000 steps. And that was like kind of a checkbox for me, like, okay, I've done that. And there's studies all over the place around. You can walk 10,000 steps, you're ahead of a big portion of the population. So just get out and walk. Like that's the start. That was the start for me. And then I always get in the problem of, okay, I'm going to do 100 push-ups and then I'm sore for the next 5 days.
Yep.
And then I stop. And so it's a matter of, okay, like ease into it. Just like walking, you aren't going to go run or sprint a marathon. Walk a mile first and then walk a mile and a half and then just kind of ease up. And that's what's worked for me. Other people are able to just go like all out immediately. It's not me.
I think I'm more like you. Our dear friend James Clear, Atomic Habits, he put it this way. He's like, it's not actually exercise that's the hardest thing for you. It's getting dressed to go exercise, right? And I'm paraphrasing, but it's this idea of if you can get dressed, you're much more motivated to then exercise because you already changed your clothes and you're in that position to do that, right? Oh, I just tied those shoes. I might as well go and actually let the rubber meet the road, right?
Well, Mark Cuban goes to bed in the clothes he's going to work out in.
Which I love that idea. Yeah. Simplify it. I've done a couple of things in my life to help me get a little bit more movement my day. One is before I moved into this office space, I have metal door frames now, so I can't do it. But I had a wooden door frame and I hung a pull-up bar. And I ended up doing probably 50 pull-ups a day in various forms just on my bathroom breaks.
Yeah.
2, try and replace as many sugary drinks with water. I have one of those Stanleys that, are just so popular right now. And I chug those things, right? These things have made a big difference in my life and they're so simple. So now, because I'm at this office and I don't have my pull-up bar here, I hung a pull-up bar in my bedroom in between the bedroom and the master bath. So every time I go in there, dude, it's several pull-ups.
Yeah.
They're micro workouts. There's a guy that I follow on LinkedIn who I think is tremendous. His name is Dan Go, and he talks about simple fitness changes that you can make. And he said the biggest flex that you can have when you're 40 years old is a healthy body and good relationships. It's not the car you drive. It's not the house you have. It's not even the business you have.
Yeah.
It's literally your health and your relationships. And I see you as somebody who's doing that.
Trying.
That's what I love, is trying, right? In my opinion, being somebody, the choice to be somebody is the choice to try. And so I just want to applaud you for that, my friend.
Thank you.
And of course, I didn't read 90% of those questions because I just wanted to chit chat with you. And I think that it's interesting here because we were talking about this before. Anytime you record a podcast, you run the threat of it getting too personal, and then everybody watching is saying, well, what's in this for me, right? What I'm hoping that people get out of this specific episode is that you are a guy who is choosing every single day to make little decisions for the betterment of your life. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think the important part to understand there is they're not all the right, good decisions. And so the way it was described to me was somebody that I really admire and look up to. They were talking about an organization and they described it as this tapestry. So there are all these little threads that are making up this tapestry. Like if you zoom in on a thread, you will find imperfections and you will find colors that aren't what you think are right or they don't look great. But when you zoom out on what the picture that tapestry has made, it's beautiful. And so as I go through my life, I hope that the trajectory of where I'm going is the right place. I hope that the overall story turns out to be a good story. But in that story, if you hone in on micro moments, there's going to be sadness. There's going to be disappointment. There's going to be depression. There's going to be all of these things that come with the human experience, which is beautiful, all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I think like if we all hone in on the bad threads, that hurts us. But if we can take a step to step back a little bit and see the picture that is being woven here and understand that it's beautiful because of the bad threads, I think that that's been a helpful analogy, at least for me, as I go through that, because I don't make the right decisions often, but every once in a while we get one.
I think that you make the right decisions more than you don't.
Yeah, I don't know what the hopefully it's 51-49 and then I'm in a good spot.
It's a majority share, baby.
Yeah.
Well, you have been an absolute joy to hang out with. Thank you for gracing my yellow chair with your presence, specifically your backside presence. And if you were to tell the audience one thing that you think would help them today, what would it be?
I'll end with my dad. I've carried it with me my entire life. Every day growing up, so he would drive me to school as an elementary school kid. He'd drive me to middle school, and then he would see me off once I could drive. I'd drive to high school. And every day without fail, he would say the same thing to me. And it was always, do your best. And it was just those 3 words. And so I was asked a question of, would you rather, do you love winning more or do you hate losing more? And I don't have the choice. For me, it's always, did I do my best? So whatever activity that is, win, lose, draw, did I do my best? Because there have been times where I did my best and we lost and I was okay. Or there are times where I didn't do my best and we won and I didn't feel great about it. And so I think like whatever you're doing in your life, show up, do your best, and whatever the results are, you can sleep well at night knowing that you did your best.
I love that. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
One more thing. Do you have any questions for me? I asked a lot of questions today.
My question for you is, you are one of the most positive guys that I've ever experienced and ever been around. And we're different in terms of the kind of extrovert-introvert spectrum. And for me, it's draining to think about being who you are in terms of like energy-wise. I don't have the energy to do what you do. How do you keep that energy level up? Do you have some sort of an expectation for yourself around that of like, I have to live up to this every day? And it feels like you've got to have moments where you're not happy. So what does that all look like?
Let's start with a thank you. I appreciate that. A lot of people who don't know me or who only know me online, they ask questions when they meet me of like, are you really the same dude online as you are in person? Yeah. And I like to say, absolutely, I am.
Well, I can say it. You are. Like, well, because I've been said that at Man Games. Someone come up and is like, is this real? I was like, yeah, that's Bobby. Like, that's him.
So interestingly enough, there's a lot to dive into here. When I was a kid, I didn't know it at the time, but I was experiencing some very deep OCD symptoms. And I'm not talking about like the TV series Monk or some quirky behaviors. I'm talking about intrusive thoughts, which really scared me as a kid. And I had to find an escape from those thoughts because they were like a looping GIF that just would get in my mind and they would stay there. And if I told you some of these thoughts, you would look at me and be like, what? Like, how does somebody in their right mind even think that? So I had to find an escape. And my escape was sports. And in sports, I always met people. And then I realized that I liked the way that I felt as I was around different people, especially in environments that were uplifting and positive. Then my parents split when I'm 4. I have a bunch of siblings who are very loving. They helped raise me. I was always kind of in the homes of other people. And the one thing that my mom was able to do is to really teach us manners. And so I recognized, I'd hear the little chatterings of like, hey, we like it when Bobby comes over. Bobby, you're always welcome here. Bobby, you're so polite, da-da-da-da. And that fueled me. It was like in a sense of appreciation or adoration that I needed at that moment in my life. And God just put great people in my life. And so I think that fueled the fire to make me want to be more extroverted. And then all of a sudden you get into these later areas of life, middle school, high school, et cetera, where we're all going through our own personal hell, right? In our own way. awkward phases, you name it, this, that. And the one thing that I always thought was this: can I make somebody's day better? It's like the Michael Jordan experience where he's like, hey, I'm going all out because somebody paid to come see me once in a lifetime. And I flip that to a personality standpoint and I say, if somebody is going to meet Bobby Macey, what experience can I give them? I try to give that to the people who work with me. I try to give that to my friends. And so many times I fail to give them a superior experience, right? But other times I deliver on that. And that when I do deliver, it's addicting. And it becomes about them, and it becomes about, what can I do to ease somebody's burden? What can I do to make a life better today? And that is something, that's dopamine I've been chasing for a long time. And thankfully, I think it's a healthy dopamine to chase. The challenging part about that is when you get to be my age in your mid-30s and you start going to therapy because you realize it's a good thing and you got things to unpack, you realize that you've been a people pleaser your whole life and you have to learn how to say no to certain things. That's a process I'm going through right now that is really stretching me. But when it comes to the positivity, when it comes to the energy that I yield from being around people, I think I'm a victim of my circumstance, but in a good way. At first, because of those OCD thoughts, I was seeking a distraction. I just needed squirrel, right?
Yeah.
And then I found, thankfully, positive things to do and to invest my time and energy in and to fill my brain with, rather than a bunch of the crap that's out in the world. And like I said, that's dopamine that I like to chase now.
Does the weight of the self-imposed expectations that you just mentioned ever get heavy?
It absolutely does. There are times where Heidi sees it the most, obviously, because she's my spouse, but there are times where I'm just exhausted and I feel like I have nothing. And I find myself, I used to be the guy who was like, you come home from a long day of work or whatever, and it's like, okay, I just need my people, let's go. And there are times now where I find myself becoming more introverted. Like, no, I need to recharge. I need stillness. I need silence. I think the biggest area that's heavy for me right now is with parenting, because I'm trying to grow and run a business. I'm trying to be a great dad, trying to be a great husband, and all of those things are extremely taxing. And I do hold myself to very high expectations when it comes to, once again, how am I treating people? Because there are times where I totally want to bark at my kids, and I think to myself, is this the right time to do that? And there are times where I lose my temper, just like anyone else. But the expectations, they are heavy. And so this is where, for me, a lot of that mental toughness and some of the self-improvement things that I do come into play. Every day when I turn that shower cold for the last minute, dude, I take it right in the throat. And it is so uncomfortable. I've been doing this for a long time and it's still uncomfortable. Every time I get in 35, 40 degree water up to my neck, you think I like that? Absolutely not. I do not like that. But that's the point, is in my mind, I am telling myself, this is the hardest thing I'm going to do all day. And if I can sit with myself in this pain and this discomfort, then I can sit with other people in their discomfort. And that's going to make me twice the man.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't hide it. You can't hide your discomfort when you're going through some of these things. And so now, in a weird way, that almost helps me in a physical way. It helps me to discharge all the emotions that I'm processing. And that's been a really healthy thing for me. But this is a topic. I have a therapy appointment tonight, dude.
All right.
This might be brought up.
All right.
Because that was a good question.
Well, I think of it as like, I don't have the expectation that you need to deliver on being Bobby Macey when I'm around you. And so that's where I worry. I was like, I hope Bobby, its self-imposed expectation is bringing the energy, but know that people love you even if you are having a downtime. So you don't need to have the protective, energetic shell around the people that love you and that are closest to you.
Well, and I appreciate that. And that is felt. I have a handful of people, yourself included, that I can really let my guard down. And it's nice because most of the time, especially to strangers or people that I do meet, I really want to give them a pleasant experience with me. And I want that for my inner circle as well, but I don't feel the same expectation with my inner circle.
Yeah. Well, you're a stud.
Well, likewise, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah. It's great.
All right, Erik. I love you, buddy. Fist bump me.
Yes. Is that the close?
That's the close. That's now the close.